Hello and a very warm welcome to an India Today special broadcast. India checkmated China and Pakistan at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's defense ministers meet in Qingdao in China. So this was a very well-planned ambush for a joint statement with a reference to Jafar Express in Balochistan, but absolutely no mention of cross-border terrorism or condemnation of Pahalgam terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir. So Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, he stuck to his guns and he refused to sign the dotted line. But this does indicate the minefield that lies ahead for India.
India thwarts China-Pakistan ploy. Rajnath rejects biased Shanghai Cooperation Organization draft. Pakistan terror treachery cover-up blocked. India checkmates China and Pakistan. India blocks Pakistan terror diversion. That is a big focus on India first.
India has in the past fallen into Pakistan's Balochistan trap once. Remember that draft at Sharma Sheikh, where reference to Balochistan had crept into that joint statement when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister of India. But in 2025, India refused to accept that diplomatic niceties and ink a joint statement unless there was clear condemnation not just of cross-border terrorism but specific reference to condemnation of Pahalgam terror attack. Incidentally, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is also reported to have maintained a safe distance from Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif at the SCO Defence Ministers meet. We talk about that in greater detail. Also coming up at 8:30 on India First. Massive controversy over Zohran Mamdani, seen as the next likely mayor of New York. He's become the Democrat candidate, and US President Donald Trump has called him 100% communist lunatic, and those opposing him have actually draped the Statue of Liberty in a burqa or put out that image on social media platforms. So we get you that raging debate in the United States of America. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started. India was able to checkmate China and Pakistan at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's defense ministers meet at Qingdao. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh refused to sign a draft statement that excluded a reference to Pahalgam terror attack and cross-border terrorism, but sought to include the Balochistan train hijacking incidents, that Jafar Express incident in Pakistan. Rajnath Singh refused to endorse such a joint statement as it did not explicitly address India's concerns. Rajnath Singh called on SCO members to work together to reduce the risk of terrorism in this region that impacts everyone. We get you more in our top story.
A brief moment at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit exposed the deep divide within. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Thursday refused to sign a draft statement that excluded the Pahalgam terror attack but sought to include the Balochistan train hijacking in Pakistan. The defence ministers of India, China and Pakistan came face-to-face in Qingdao at the summit of the 10-nation grouping. This was their first such meeting after the 4-day-long conflict between India and Pakistan. At the meet, Rajnath Singh launched an all-out attack on Pakistan. While the Indian minister did not name the neighbour, the message was clear.
Peace and prosperity cannot coexist with terrorism and the proliferation of weapons of the mass destruction in the hands of the non-state actors and the terror groups. It is imperative that those who sponsor, nurture and utilize terrorism for their narrow and selfish ends must bear the consequences. Some countries use cross-border terrorism as an instrument of policy. and provide shelter to terrorists. There should be no place for such double standards. SCO should not hesitate to criticize such nations.
Sources tell India Today no pleasantries were exchanged between Rajnath Singh and his Pakistani counterpart, Khwaja Asif. The attempt to squeeze in Balochistan attack while keeping Pahalgam out does not come as a surprise, given the extent of support given by China to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor.
Certain member countries could not reach consensus on certain issues, and hence the document could not be finalized. On our side, India wanted concerns on terrorism reflected in the document, which was not acceptable to one particular country, and therefore the statement was not adopted.
The SCO summit was further more proof of the close strategic alliance between Pakistan and China. Pakistan, which has long used terror as a weapon to target India, has evidently become China's proxy now. The Chin-Pak tango has emerged as India's biggest security challenge in the region. Bureau Report, India Today.
The biggest challenge we face in this region, it's related to peace, security and trust deficit, is what Rajnath Singh said. He said the root cause of these problems are increasing radicalization, extremism and terrorism. This was at the SCO Defence Ministers meet. The trust deficit was apparent for all to see. Pakistan, perhaps backed by host China, managed to slip in that reference to Balochistan. And there was no reference to the Pahalgam terror attack. And as you heard the spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, one country seemed to block that reference to terrorism, and no points for guessing it would have been Pakistan. But is not having a joint statement a setback for China? And was India able to negotiate the minefield and what lies ahead? Joining me now on this India First special broadcast, Dr. Manoj Joshi is a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Robinder Sachdev is the Director, India Affairs at the USINPAC. Bhavya Narasimhamurthy is the spokesperson of the Congress Party, and Tuhin Sinha represents the BJP on this broadcast. Dr. Joshi, was it a minefield laid out for India with the reference to Jafar Express in Balochistan and no reference to Pahalgam? Was Mr. Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister, able to avoid it? In your appreciation, what do you make of there not being a joint statement?
Well, first of all, not having a joint statement is not unusual in such organizations, because they go by consensus, meaning everyone must agree. But my point is, why did we then agree to Balochistan in the first place? Meaning, why was Balochistan included? I can understand Pakistan objecting to Pahalgam. So, each organization has a different politics within it. The SCO actually shouldn't, because the SCO is meant to fight terrorism. One of the very important goals of the SCO is combating terrorism. But all I can say is that there was some local politics, individual politics playing their part. Of course, one cannot expect Pakistan to accept the reference to Pahalgam easily. Because I must point out to you that on June 7th, there was a BRICS parliamentary meeting in Brasilia. And our speaker, Mr. Om Birla, had gone for that. And in that meeting, they accepted a reference to Pahalgam. Pahalgam was criticism or condemnation of Pahalgam was accepted there. And who was in the meeting? India, Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa, Iran, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia.
Correct.
All the BRICS countries. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm not very clear as to what kind of politics played out in the SCO in Beijing, but certainly the presence of Pakistan itself would indicate that there would be no chance that Pahalgam would be accepted.
Robinder Sachdev, a trap laid out for India at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization with this reference to Balochistan, with that Jafar Express, and was India able to avoid that?
Thank you. I mean, I would not exactly think and say it's a trap laid out, but yes, you're so very right. It was an intent to, highlight Balochistan as a region which is infected by terror without any reference to Pahalgam, therefore kind of, indicating that in this region, let's say the South Asia, the greater worry and danger of terrorism is only in Balochistan and nowhere else, that way kind of setting the agenda one. But secondly, on the other hand, even if it was a trap laid out, I think it has come down badly on China, being the host of a summit. And if you're not able to come up with a joint statement, is often looked as being, uh, uh, not a successful summit, so to say, right? And India, to my knowledge, has never before at the SCO, at any of the ministerial conclaves, I think they have, defense, they have other also healthcare and a few others, 4 or 5 other, verticals. India has never kind of stayed out and said that we will not sign on this consensus. India has typically gone along with the consensus, valuing, let's say, regional cooperation over, in some senses,
Yes.
our national interest, because we do see that the regional issues equally affect our national interest. But this
Terrorism
time round,
affects
I think,
everyone, but in this
Yeah.
case, anyway, SCO is not supposed to discuss bilateral issues. It's that game that Pakistan was trying to play, perhaps with China, to try and slip in Balochistan and not have Pahalgam reference. And Bhavya, how do you view there not being a joint statement at the end of the defense ministers' meet?
First of all, I would like to appreciate that he did not sign this joint statement. But it's the right time to discuss why this SCO, a very important country like India, did not get its say. Its concerns was not addressed. I honestly believe there are 3 main reasons for this. One, if you remember, it's been 5 years since India gave a clean sheet to Galwan Valley intrusion by Chinese troops. When PM Modi came out and said there was no intrusion happened at all. After 2 days after External Affairs Ministry had released a statement saying Chinese troops tried to, erect some kind of structure in Galwan Valley on our side of line of actual control. And 20 of our soldiers gave their life to this. And still, the Narendra Modi came out and literally gave clean sheet to China. This was just like, they just take our thing for granted. They'll just take our country for granted. If we do not have a strong prime minister who cannot even acknowledge that 20 of our soldiers have died, and this is because of your intrusion, right? This is the first reason. The second one, we have a trade deficit of $99.2 billion with China today. And to deal with it, we definitely need a leader with some kind of economic respect to Indian economy, at least. We have known about Narendra Modi's economic policies in the past and what a disaster they have been, including demonetization or GST. But with China, this can also be a reason. And recently, during Operation Sindoor as well, China gave open support to Pakistan, whether it is in providing intelligence assistance or satellite assistance or even military and jet. We can totally see why they had the audacity to not include our concern, but include the Balochistan point there.
Okay.
We
Let me bring
definitely
in Tuhin
need
Sinha.
to make a very strong
Tuhin Sinha,
statement and not make
respond.
a disaster out of our diplomacy.
Okay, the Congress
And
says
foreign
the
policy.
Narendra Modi government has made a disaster of our diplomacy and foreign policy. Respond that the Congress's point is that India stands isolated in a very important grouping like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Well, good evening, Gaurav. Good evening, everybody. The absence of a joint statement, the onus for the absence of a joint statement at SCO squarely lies upon the host. India has made 2 things very clear. India's stand against terrorism is resolute and unwavering, unlike the trade-off which it is for some of the countries. And number 2, India will successfully circumvent any attempts at hypocrisy to rehabilitate Pakistan. Now, the point is, this is a Congress party which had, in similar situations, submitted to the designs of Pakistan and signed the Sharma Sheikh. So they don't need to they should not be lecturing us on foreign policy. You need to realize that even after Operation Sindoor, several countries have openly supported India. That includes Germany, that includes Australia, that includes Japan, In fact, even countries like UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia had been extremely receptive to the arguments made by the diplomatic teams which had gone out, which only shows that our trade engagements with all of these countries would continue. In a kinetic engagement, in a kinetic conflict, in contemporary world, not many countries take an overt stand one way or the other, but you need to realize that there is a perception of India not, getting its way temporarily. It's also because the world is taking its time to come to terms with India's military and economic might. You need to realize that unlike
India is not having it our way.
No country can ignore India on the...
But they did.
No, you need to realize that unlike before 2014, no country can ignore India right now because of its economic might.
But they just
and
did.
Therefore,
They just
even
did.
Let me bring in Dr. Let me for a moment. Hold on, Bhavya.
Please don't barge in between.
I want to bring in Sandeep Puneethan before I bring in Dr. Joshi.
Just 10 more seconds.
Okay. Sandeep, hold on. Sandeep, is
Just
there
10 more
merit in the
seconds.
Congress saying, hold on. There's a lag, please hold on. Sandeep, is there merit in the Congress saying Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy or his actions vis-a-vis China and Galwan were weak, and that is why China does not take India seriously, and that is why India stood isolated in their view at the SCO Defense Ministers meet?
Absolutely not, Gaurav. I mean, in fact, India has been very clear, very resolute on this terrorism line, at least in the last 11 years. And one of the panelists was referring to the Sharma Sheikh declaration. I mean, that was absolute humiliation. I mean, just 9 months after one of the worst terror attacks on Indian soil, 26/11, you had the Prime Minister, signing off on a joint statement with the Pakistani Prime Minister where he admits that Pakistan is also a victim of terror. He brings Balochistan into the statement just to please the Pakistanis. This is, never happened. This kind of shameful joint statement at a time when your citizens have been murdered. And this is something that Defense Minister Rajnath Singh did not sign off on today. And this statement that India has made, Gaurav, on cross-border terrorism was not just here at the SCO, but at the United Nations as well. A similar line was taken by India, which called out Pakistan for state sponsorship of terror and cross-border terror. So we've been very consistent. In the last 24 hours, we've called out Pakistan on 2 different forums for cross-border terror. And this was not the stance that we saw earlier, where there were all kinds of efforts to mollycoddle Pakistan and try and do business with them over the dead bodies of Indians.
Let me bring in Dr. Joshi to weigh in on this. Dr. Joshi, you heard the Congress party spokesperson, you heard the BJP spokesperson. Is there merit in the Congress saying that post-Galwan, India's stance was weak, and that is why countries like China don't take us seriously? There's also the issue of the trade deficit, and that is how Pakistan is able to slip in references like Balochistan, which of course was not agreed to by Rajnath Singh, and the BJP saying this wasn't a disaster like in Sharma Sheikh, where Dr. Manmohan Singh had accepted a reference to Balochistan. It didn't happen in 2025.
Well, let me start with the end. I think they are right when they said that we definitely got into the back foot by the Sharma Sheikh acceptance. Meaning we thought we were doing something nice, but turned out to be a bit of a disaster, diplomatic disaster. Now, insofar as Galwan and other things are concerned, it is true that we were taken by surprise. It is true that we were taken by surprise. But thereafter, the government strategy involved trying to build down the crisis. And I think at that point in time, if to say that you've been invaded or something has happened would have been a problem. And I think that was not true, because what the Chinese really did was not to actually invade in that sense, but to establish blockades. They established blockades and they prevented our patrolling in places which we also have claim along the LAC. So it is a different kind of a situation. But when it comes to the present thing, I think Rajnath Singh is right, because there are strong. This country has extremely strong feelings about what happened in Pahalgam. And as I told you earlier, this SCO is meant to be, or SCO, if you look at its charter, there's a whole lot about fighting terrorism. They have
Yes.
counter-terrorism exercises and that kind of stuff. So terrorism is an important element of the SCO charter, and therefore to not include Pahalgam, I think straight away was travesty. Now the point is that in SCO meetings, it works on consensus. I mean, one member says no, it's no. And that one member, is the guilty party, is the party
Absolutely.
responsible for Pahalgam. So you can hardly, it would have been really surprising, if I may put it that way, if Pakistan had actually agreed to condemning itself. You see? So if you take it that way, so I can understand why Pakistan did what it did. But I think the other SCO members could have come out with a stronger statement. As I told you, it depends from institution to institution. In the case of the SCO, it is something which works by consensus.
Purely by consensus. But should India, Robinder Sachdev, and that's the point, Dr. Manoj Joshi is also alluding to, should India have used its diplomatic might to convince other members to make a stronger case on Pahalgam, or because China and Pakistan have this tango, India perhaps decided it's not worth wasting your breath, but there was no reference to Balochistan either. So it's no win India, it's no win Pakistan.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's complex. And, let's go back. I think what India has done by, not signing on to the communique today has reminded the SCO, as Dr. Joshua is saying, the founding principles of the SCO, I think within the Article 1, is a focus on territorial integrity, regional security, cross-border terrorism, no radical extremism to be spread. That is the founding basis of the SCO, because it's the Central Asian countries, Russia and China on one side, and India, etc. So that's the founding principle of the SCO. So if the SCO, I think today's act by India is a reminder for the SCO to go back to the basics. And
so it's advantage India. That's the point you're trying to make. It's advantage India that, Pakistan was not able to bring in that Balochistan point, and India was able to send across that message that, RATS as an organization, part of SCO, is all about countering terrorism and having a rapid response to terrorism. But Bhavya Narasimha Murthy respond to the BJP saying, Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he was Prime Minister, within months of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, he buckled, he agreed to a reference to Balochistan at that Sharma Sheikh agreement, which was a disaster with Pakistan. But in 2025, Rajnath Singh did not buckle, and there was no acceptance of reference to Balochistan or Jafar Express. So, when you say the BJP was weak, the BJP is hitting back and saying it's actually the Congress that was weak. This time they were stronger.
First, I would like to address two issues before I come to this. Mr. Joshi made a statement about Galwan Valley. So I would like to remind you that 2 days before Narendra Modi gave a clean sheet to China, the Ministry of External Affairs gave out a statement to the press saying Chinese side sought to erect a structure in Galwan Valley on our side of LAC. It was not just the petroleum thing. They had tried to erect a structure in our side of LAC. This was a statement by the government, after which they took a U-turn and Mr. Modi gave a clean sheet. Second thing, I would like to address the BJP spokesperson when he spoke about Operation Sindoor. The very fact that an American president comes out and claims, the credit for the ceasefire shows what India has come to. 14 times. And Narendra Modi couldn't even make a statement against it to the people of India and answer us regarding it. Second thing, the terrorists who were responsible for the attack in Pahalgam, they're still roaming free, alive. Third thing, we could not even stop the IMF from giving loans to Pakistan at the same time when this terrorist attack happened and Operation Sindoor was in place. Fourth, the very fact that we had to send a delegation to convince other countries of this world that, we have to claim the victory. Pakistan is celebrating its victory. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of India. Every time we won a war with Pakistan.
Ma'am, you still haven't answered my question, and I asked you a very specific question. I asked you a very specific question.
Yes.
You haven't answered. So you have 30 seconds if you want to answer that.
You want to claim, okay, just because Dr. Manmohan Singh said, yes, Pakistan is also a victim, does not mean he said Pakistan did not sponsor terrorism here. As a world leader, he might have acknowledged that. But here in SCO, we literally failed to even, let the other countries, which amounts to 30% GDP in the world and 40% population, to even acknowledge Pahalgam attack. Do you realize how weak we sound? How weak we look in front of the world?
You want to quickly respond before I bring in Dr. Manoj Joshi?
It's not like we said no. It's not like...
Well, Gaurav, it seems that the Congress spokesperson is extremely ignorant of the quantum of damage which Sharma Sheikh had done to India. Manmohan Singh did not accept that Pakistan is a victim of terrorism. He allowed for India's role in Balochistan to be examined. So I think, the Congress party needs to educate her about the quantum of damage which Sharma Sheikh has caused. Now, they keep talking about Trump. Trump may have spoken about this 14, 15 times that he brought about a ceasefire, but at least on 2 or 3 occasions, he himself has changed his version. Please don't barge in between. Please don't barge in between. Have some basic courtesy when I didn't intervene when you were talking. Have some basic courtesy. Of the 14 occasions where Trump may have claimed credit for ceasefire, at least on 2 or 3 occasions he himself has said, I only tried to help. And please understand, we are not obligated to answer President Trump each time. We have spoken about the issue enough number of times. The first time,
Oh my God.
Gaurav, can you ask her to behave herself, please?
You are obliged to answer the Indian people. Indian people deserve an answer, not Trump.
Madam, let him complete his point. I'll come back to you.
Please, this is not the Congress office. This is not the Congress office where you can peddle anarchy.
Go on, sir. Complete your
Gaurav,
point,
as
sir.
early as on 12th May, Prime Minister Modi in his address to the nation, on 12th May had absolutely made it clear that the ceasefire was because of Pakistan reaching out to us through DGMO. If Congress party chooses to trust President Trump over us, it's a choice they have to make. We also need to remember that in any case during the Doklam crisis, Rahul Gandhi had more trust in Chinese embassy. He would go there to dig out information. He would not reach out to our defense minister. So we know the character of this Congress party. I don't think we can take them seriously on national security issues.
Sir, since you've made a direct reference to the Congress party, before I bring in Dr. Manoj Joshi and Sandeep, Madam, you want to respond?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yes. The very fact that you think we expect Trump to answer or, we are taking him seriously. No, you don't have to answer Trump, but you are obliged to answer the people of India. When an American president claims at a global stage, it is the duty of his counterpart, the Prime Minister of India, to come out and say, no, this wasn't the case. But did he do that to the people of India? No, not once. And we requested a special session on this, on Operation Sindoor and Pahalgam. Did he even agree to that? Did he have the courage to, have a special session?
Can I quickly respond, please?
No, he did not.
Okay, I want to bring in Sandeep. Give me a moment as I bring in Sandeep into this conversation.
Which he attended by the Prime Minister, but he did not. He did not.
Okay.
It takes courage to do all that.
30 seconds. Only 30
Face
seconds. Go
Indian
on, sir.
public and
Just 10 seconds.
At least one press conference. At
You know,
least
I
one press
mentioned the
conference.
Ma'am, you
day.
made your point.
Gaurav,
Yes.
I mentioned, Gaurav, I mentioned, I specifically mentioned the date. I specifically, please, it's my 30s. I specifically mentioned the date, 12th May, his address to the nation. Please watch that 20-minute video on YouTube and you will get your answers. Even 10 days ago, our Foreign Secretary, Mr. Misri, after Prime Minister's conversation with Trump, again repeated the exact content of the conversation. If the Congress party has difficulty in comprehending information given out by Indian government and they choose to trust President Trump, it's a choice. Like I said, which Congress party has made.
Okay,
How are we
perfect.
responsible and answerable for that?
Sandeep,
This is
was
so
a bigger
laughable. I tell
diplomatic
you,
outreach
this is
required to SCO members, to BRICS members? Yes, it's been made to the United Nations and to United Nations Security Council non-permanent members when diplomats went out and political leaders went out. Is a bigger outreach required, or is India able to send across the message loud and clear?
No, absolutely, Gaurav. A bigger outreach is needed to organizations like the BRICS and the SCO, particularly the SCO, because as you just mentioned, SCO, one of the founding principles of the SCO is the RATS, right? The Regional Anti-Terrorism section. Now, that is something that is so fundamental to SCO, and you have a country like Pakistan, which has been called out for being a state sponsor of terrorism across the world. Everybody knows it, but for some reason, for countries like China, Pakistan always finds a place in these organizations. Pakistan is defended at the United Nations. Its state sponsorship of terror has been protected by China. You remember the number of times China blocked our attempts to get Maulana Masood Azhar declared an international terrorist. Someone everybody knows is a terrorist. China would veto all of those attempts by us. So there is clearly a need for us to step up our game and talk to our friends.
Dr.
at
Joshi,
the SCO
a lot more is
and
required
BRICS.
to be done to isolate Pakistan, because whether it's General Asim Munir having lunch at the White House or the kind of support Pakistan gets from China, opposite ends of the spectrum, Pakistan is able to interact and get itself close to Russia, to America and to China.
Well, that is the history of Pakistan. Meaning since 1950, we have been seeing that Pakistan has just one end in view, which is how do we maintain effective parity with India? Effective parity. There can't be real parity. Now, towards that end, it has done all sorts of things. Number one, external alliances. Number two, very high military spending. Number three, made nuclear weapons. Number four, supported terrorism. It has used these four-pronged kind of a spear to keep on attacking India. And that is why we can never pin down Pakistan. And the problem is, of course, Pakistan wants all this. But simultaneously, if you look at countries like the US and UK, they have long seen Pakistan as being important for their goals in the Middle East as well as Central Asia. Don't forget
So
that
the
the U-2
geographical
flight.
location, absolutely. You know, I've run out of time on this part of the show. It clearly indicates that India will need to up our game to checkmate a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror that Pakistan continues to remain. Operation Sindoor was a very important first step, but a lot more needs to be done. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. Zohran Mamdani has stirred a hornet's nest. He may have won the bid to be the Democratic Party's candidate to be mayor of New York City, but he's emerged as a massive polarizing figure both in the United States of America and in parts of India. For example, US President Donald Trump in the US has called Mamdani 100% communist lunatic, having a mega base. Now that MAGA base in the United States is having a mega meltdown. In India, from the BJP's Kangana Ranaut to the Congress Party's Abhishek Manu Singhvi, both have called Mamdani or indicated that Mamdani is quite like a Pakistani agent. Why? We get you more in this report.
Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done.
New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani's Democratic mayoral primary win has triggered deep political tremors, both in the United States and nearly 8,000 miles away in India. US President Donald Trump launched a furious attack on Zohran Mamdani, calling him 100% communist lunatic, and declared that him being on his way to becoming New York City mayor was ridiculous. MAGA supporters have been sharing edited pictures of the Statue of Liberty wearing a burqa after Mamdani won New York City's Democratic mayoral primary.
From DC to Delhi, Zohran Mamdani has united both the ruling dispensation and the opposition in India. BJP MP Kangana Ranaut took a Hinduism jab at Mamdani, declaring that he sounds more Pakistani than Indian. The actor-turned-politician also shared an old video where Mamdani was raining anti-Hindu slogans.
Sat Sri Akal ji, my name is Zohran Mamdani. I am a candidate for New York State Assembly District 36, Astoria, Dipmar Steinway, Astoria Heights. I'm here today to protest against the BJP government in India and the demolition of the Babri Masjid in the attempt to build a mandir on top of the ruins of it.
Congress MP Abhishek Manu Singhvi also echoed Kangana's opinion. He slammed 33-year-old Mamdani, stating that when Zohran Mamdani opens his mouth, Pakistan's PR team takes the day off.
भाइयों और बहनों, इस इलेक्शन में सिर्फ 20 दिन बचे हैं और चॉइस मेरे और एंड्रू कोमो के बीच में है.
While Zohran Mamdani has been cashing in on his Desi roots, his controversial comments on Prime Minister Modi.
My father, his family comes from Gujarat in India, and his family is Muslim, I'm Muslim. And Narendra Modi helped to orchestrate what was a mass slaughter of Muslims in Gujarat to the extent that we don't even believe there are Gujarati Muslims anymore. And when I tell someone that I am, it's a shock to them that is even the case.
And his hot takes on the Babri demolition and the Ram Mandir have earned him the tag of a foreign meddler pushing propaganda from the Indian right wing. Zohran Mamdani, son of Indian-American filmmaker Meera Nair, is a 33-year-old self-declared socialist who's backed by the Democratic Socialists of America party. His New York mayoral candidature is seen as crucial for the future of the Democratic Party. Bureau Report, India Today.
How often is it that the President of the United States of America would comment on the election of a mayor in New York City? Of course, the largest city, the richest office there when it comes to the mayor of New York City. But let me bring in Seema Sirohi, a very well-respected columnist and author. She's written that book, Friends with Benefits, the US-India story. Also with me on this broadcast is Kushal Mehra, a very well-respected author and blogger in Canada, 6 months a year, in India, the other 6 months. Welcome, Kushal. Welcome, Seema Sirohi. Seema Sirohi, let me come to you first. Tell me, what do you make of US President Donald Trump calling Mamdani 100% communist lunatic, the Statue of Liberty being draped in a burqa in those images that are going viral on social media? Why is America literally taken by storm here?
Well, remember that President Trump is from New York, so there is a little personal feeling there. But even if you cut out the exaggeration of, communist, lunatic, Mamdani, by his own admission, is a democratic socialist. He is from the wing of, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So he is left of in the democratic firmament. This poses a very big question for the Democrats. If he indeed is the face and the voice of, let's say, going into the midterm elections or whatever, they have to decide, the Democrats have to decide, is this kind of philosophy, where he's talking of government-owned grocery stores, he's talking about free bus rides and more taxes. Is that something the Democrats want to align with? These are the big questions, and they are struggling. Many top Democrats have kind of distanced themselves. While congratulating Mamdani, they have not sort of embraced him.
Okay. Bernie Sanders, for example, and I'll come to Bernie Sanders in just a moment, but Kushal Mehra, he's someone who calls himself progressive, but openly embraces controversial slogans, according to the American media, like globalize the intifada. And what's the reaction to something like this on the streets in New York or across the United States of America if he were to be the face of the Democrats in future?
Well, first of all, good evening, Gaurav, and good evening to everyone else. It's been very interesting. Since the news has broken that Mamdani has won the primaries, everybody seems to have lost their collective it's a collective meltdown, as they say. I think I first want to congratulate the people of New York. They have their own Kejriwal. So congratulations to all of them. New York walo, aapko Kejriwal naya Kejriwal Mubarak ho. The street reaction, well, it depends. It's divided whom you talk to, right? If you talk to people who are sympathetic to the Democratic Party and which wing of the Democratic Party, like Democratic Party has the far left, which is the squad or the quad, which AOC, Ilhan Omar, and all the other two are part of. They're very happy because Mamdani clearly, speaks their language. If you talk to centrist Democrats, they may not be exactly happy. If you talk to Republicans, they are very happy because they think that this guy will polarize the centrists and they might dump him and go to the Republicans. I think there are three things. They're also hoping that maybe Andrew Cuomo gets pissed off and runs independent and he splits the vote of the left. So there are a lot of theories that I'm listening to when I talk to people in New York. But yeah, I still want to maintain. I think New York deserves a Kejriwal too, and I'm very happy.
Okay. Seema Sirohi globalized the Intifada and he hasn't distanced himself from this or many other slogans that many would find rather controversial. And you agree with Kushal that even amongst the Democrats, the Ilhan Omars will be very happy, but the centrists may be apprehensive. And what about Bernie Sanders and his support, and what would that ultimately mean?
See, Bernie Sanders, whatever you may say about him, he has, the intellectual heft, I would say, that young Mamdani, who seems to embrace every catchy slogan like globalize the Intifada, and, he's been a rapper, he's, been all over the place, kind of. So the problem is he has won the primary on the backs or with the votes of the white liberals who make about $100,000 per year plus. Blacks have not voted for him in great numbers. It's Andrew Cuomo who got the black vote. So this coalition that he has built is a very interesting coalition of the rich people. And can the Democrats sort of ride on that? They know that they lost the election last time, on the presidential election, because that's not enough votes, right? So I don't know if he's going to distance himself, that is Mamdani, from all the controversial things he has said. He has been pretty vitriolic about the Indian Prime Minister, and all those things will come into play as we move forward. But
Kushal, how are Indian Americans looking at this? Sorry, Seema, I'll just come back to you in 1 minute. Kushal, how are Indian Americans looking at this, and especially the Hindu Americans? Because the kind of things he says, when it comes to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Gujarat, and where he says, my father comes from Gujarat, and, the so-called massacre of Muslims in Gujarat, and do Muslims exist in Gujarat anymore, or words to that effect. How are Hindu Americans taking this, and Indian Americans?
Well, obviously, like any other community, right? Hindu Americans will have a multiple response mechanism. There are the woke on steroids Hindus. I think the woke on steroids Hindus would be the Riddhi Patel types. I don't know if people remember the famous case of Riddhi Patel, the girl from California, or the girl recently who did a speech where she was also talking about the globalizing of the Intifada after her graduation. So those will be very happy with Mamdani because Mamdani is clearly from their camp. Then obviously there are the normal, non-communist Hindu Americans. They might be, petrified with his thoughts. But in all of this, the one point I want to talk about, because you mentioned Mamdani has spewed absolute venom against the Honorable Prime Minister of India, and here is the bit that confuses me so much. The same person gets invited by the Indian consulate in New York on April 12th, 2025 for the Eid celebration as a speaker. They have tweeted this out, Gaurav. I am not the one. The India in New York handle is tweeting it out. So clearly one government department does not know what the other government department is doing. So forget what the Hindu Americans think. Like the Hindu American, and it is the Hindu Americans who told me about this. They're like, you guys are saying we are supposed to be wary of this guy, which we are, but look at what your own consulate does.
What the government of India is doing. And Siva Sirohi, you know, his comparing Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Benjamin Netanyahu, is that radical posturing of a diaspora activist, or is that a larger ecosystem that wants to delegitimize Indian democracy, show it in very poor light in the West, and then ride that wave?
See, it certainly helps with a certain section of Americans, including white Americans, that, Indian democracy is under stress. This is a strain of thinking in the Democratic Party. It comes up, it came up during the Biden administration towards the, throughout, there was an undercurrent where they would question Indian officials who were visiting and would make statements in front of the press about the state of Indian democracy. So that is there. But Mamdani is sort of an extreme version of it. I don't think there is wider acceptance for this kind of talk that, I'm not going to let Netanyahu come into New York City. Things
or
like
that
that.
I'll have him arrested, or words to that effect, yeah.
Yeah, it's just bizarre and kind of loony, and represents a bonanza for the Republicans. It's like, they got Christmas in June, early Christmas in June, with the primary victory of Mr. Mamdani. Let's see if he moderates his position, but he will be questioned. And it opens up the race a little bit because of his extreme positions. We have to see what happens if Eric Adams, the other contender who is looking for the Democratic vote, he's running as an independent, whether he captures it or whether the Republicans make an inroad.
Fair enough, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. I will come back to both of you for more on this, but for the moment, Kushal Mehra and Siva Sirohi, many thanks for joining me. And I want to leave you with the good news story of the day. It's official. For the first time in over 40 years, 41 years to be precise, the International Space Station now, for the first time ever, has an Indian on board. Watch these images of Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla, an ace fighter pilot of the Indian Air Force. He's a Su-30 MKI pilot, affectionately known as Shooks to his astronaut friends. He's successfully piloted the Dragon spacecraft to dock with the International Space Station earlier this evening. Now, this represents another giant achievement for Indian space exploration.
And their first visit to the International Space
with
Station
these
is
images
to cross
of the docking and the hatch being opened and the 4-member crew, 3 rookies and Peggy Pittman, the ace commander of this mission, moving from the spaceship to the International Space Station.
Representing Qingdao and the nation of Hungary, their first visit to the International Space Station as well.